Folks, welcome into the studio where we're going to jump into part 3 of our Georgia O'Keeffe unit. In part 1, we investigated how to take the natural form and really make it take center stage in a composition. How to really let a plant or something simple, easy to shade, easy to draw, become the main subject of an artwork. Black and white, pretty much true to form as well, really sticking with the shapes as they were in our reference. Also same size. In this next exploration, we're going to allow our imaginations and our own creativity to kind of jump in. We're not going to worry so much about staying true to the original form or true to the original color or true to the original size. Now folks, before we jump into it, I want to show you a completed artwork in the style that we're about to do. Notice a couple things right off the bat. Here's the reference. The size has changed. The shapes are not the same as they are here, although they're kind of the same. So we're using it as a reference. It's no longer a copy of our reference that we're doing here. We're using this to get where we want to go. We're bringing more of our stuff in. Don't be intimidated. This whole process is an interesting and easier than it looks process that I'm going to show you guys how to do as we go forward. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I guarantee some success. I guarantee you some results kind of like this if you follow along pretty closely. So let's get into it. Here's what we're going to need. A large work surface, 2 sheets of colored paper, 11 by 14, a printout of your reference photo. See the links above for help with that. A straight edge for making a line. A pencil with an eraser. A razor knife or scissors. Dry Color Pastels. And not seen here, 1 magic marker. Our first step is to create a grid on 1 sheet of 11 by 14. We'll use the grid to transfer the shapes from the reference. To start, I half the paper long ways, or hamburger, and make a little crease at the top and the bottom. I then quarter the paper along this same axis by bringing the corner to the halfway mark and making a little crease. Here you see me marking my creases with pencil before finishing the other side. Switching the orientation to hot dog, repeat the same process on both short edges of the sheet. Now simply use the straight edge to connect your crease marks with very lightly drawn lines. Repeat the exact same process on the picture side of your reference print. This is how to grid a reference without measurements. It's now time to use the grid to transfer the basic shapes, box by box, from the reference to the project paper. Here I'm starting in the upper left corner box and working my way down. I return to the top and finish this first shape, careful that my drawn shapes fit in the boxes just like the printout does. Box by box and shape by shape we go. Once the basic shapes are transferred, label them in layers from front to back. 1 for the closest, 2 for the shapes just behind 1, and 3 for the row of shapes behind that, and so on. While this isn't absolutely necessary, it will help later. In our first O'Keeffe study, we were very true to the shapes from the reference, and so far we haven't strayed much today either.
But our goal is to bring more of ourself into these nature pictures, like O'Keeffe did. The shapes are a big part of that. Let's allow nature, our nature and the nature of the materials we use, to help us make some interesting shapes. Here you see me modifying the basic shapes with the help of different materials. Straight edge, magic marker, and watercolor brush all help create different line qualities. How would you describe them? Challenge yourself to explore out of your current comfort zone to guarantee some interesting shapes for your art today. If you're splitting this project up into two parts, now is a logical time to take a break. Welcome back. Now we've been calling this the project paper, but the reality is, this is the project paper. The sheet we've been working on so far will become a set of stencils that we'll use with the colored chalk to complete our art. Using your cutting tool, remove the number 1 layer, or the objects closest to you. Place the real project paper on the cleaned surface and lay the stencil on top. Fasten the sheets together. I'm using clothespins. Choose a color for these closest shapes. Remember, we're not staying true to life with colors this time. Then add a second color. Go with your first instinct. There are no wrong answers. Stay away from black at this point. I get to work removing the next group of shapes from the stencil, and I pick out a different color I like. I challenge myself to be unconventional about the colors, but I always add at least 2 colors to every shape at this point. This rule will serve us well in most art projects. Colors out of the tube or the box look great going on, but they look flat and synthetic when they're hanging on the wall. Here I use a simple blend of 2 different blues. It creates depth and interest in the shape. O'Keeffe's journey from coal-stained New York City and her subsequent artistic blossoming in the American Southwest is the stuff of legend. In popular cultural mythology, Georgia herself is rooted into the desert soil and blooms there like a cactus after a spring rain. Many people have speculated that her pictures of landscapes and flowers are her self-portraits, the subjects magically imbued with humanity through her eyes. In an attempt to follow her lead, I decided to let this petal become a tongue, for no other reason than that its shape resembles one. It's a low-stakes gamble. Watch here how I use the cutout shape along with the stencil to provide another wall for the shape that I'm coloring. We will use this process a lot later on. If you're good at recognizing patterns, you've already guessed our next move. Here I'm removing the next row of shapes. I take a massive artistic liberty with the edge of this one leaf going way off my script, which I regret later, but in the end wind up liking, which just goes to show the path is crooked, so just keep going. I choose traditional leaf colors on this and blend green, yellow-green, and yellow, which is always a lovely combination. Now folks, I won't sugarcoat it. These next steps here get tricky. There's not a lot of the stencil left, and you'll see me struggling with these next sections to keep all these pieces in place while I color. It is frustrating, and I do recommend using some low-strength adhesive tape like a blue or green painter's tape. It would have really helped. Without getting too deep into color theory, I'll just say that the brighter and bolder colors tend to stand out, while the muted neutral colors can appear to recede on the picture. Since these last few areas here are the farther away shapes from my reference, I want to enhance that sense of distance, so I'm using the more muted tones. It's a little trick that you can use. If you are breaking this project up into 3 days, now is a logical time to take a break. Welcome back to my studio. It really is such a privilege for me to be able to share this lesson with you. I just can't overstate that. Thank you so much for joining me here for the final section of our second exploration into the well-known 20th century American artist and icon, Georgia O'Keeffe. In this section, we assess our composition and reach for maximum impact using the heavy hitters dimension and contrast. First, let's start with a side-by-side, comparing Georgia's famous flower abstraction from 1924 with what we have so far. Georgia achieves dimension in the shapes by increasing the tonal differences within each one. Notice the change from dark to light, both subtle and more pronounced, within every shape. This gives each shape dimension, whereas our shapes appear flat. Let us take some time to add dimension to our shapes by creating and emphasizing differences in tone within each shape. Using the cutouts to create a natural barrier for the chalk, I begin experimenting with some subtle enhancement, darkening the greens where other shapes overlap. This is called a drop shadow. While flower abstraction is generally a light tone painting, O'Keeffe is clearly not afraid of the dark. Now is time for us to up the stakes and add some black drop shadows. Remember which shapes are in front. The shadow goes on the farther shape's edge. Black chalk is the strongest pigment in the box. Try adding the chalk to the cutout and smearing it onto your art. Adding dimension to natural objects, also known as organic shapes and forms, can be complex or simple. O'Keeffe's example shows that our own instincts are natural and organic. By doing the simple thing, we can achieve results. Here I add ample dimension, turning this blue shape into a form with just a simple slash of color. Bolstered by this success, I repeat the process on the tongue shape with a splash of red. With dimension added to our shapes, we can now address the background. As our picture is very light, I'll choose a high contrast, jet black background. Like all our creations, this one is finished when you say it is. My rule of thumb is to push it until it starts to break. When you're done with yours, be sure you spray it with a fixative spray to stop the dust from smearing.
Well, folks, thank you again for tuning in and making this possible. I hope you had even half as much fun as I did doing this project. If you had some success and would like to share it with me, that would be so greatly appreciated. See the instructions in the description below. Tune in next time. I'm getting prepared for the next part of the unit, the final part of the Georgia O'Keeffe exploration. We're going to be using her style to help us learn a little bit about oil paints. So tune in for the next segment on Georgia O'Keeffe. Until then, have a great time. Thank you again so much. I'm ever so grateful to be able to do this here on this platform. God bless.